Good evening, everyone. I just want to first start off by saying thank you to my mother for providing me with this folder to hold my talk in. Bless her. My talk is titled, What Are You Doing Tonight? But before I get into why it's called that, I have a little bit of context for you. When I first became a part of this talk, I had a really clear idea of a story that I wanted to tell. A story about meeting my Welsh partner as an avatar in virtual reality during the lockdown. And yes, you did hear that right. Moving to Swansea from London to live together and going on to create a virtual reality dating platform to help others meet in the same interesting way that my partner and I did. But unfortunately, that's not the story I'll be telling this evening. I was excited at the thought of telling that story, but every time I attempted to write about it, nothing ever flowed or felt right. Not because I didn't have anything to say, it just later turned out it wasn't the story that I needed to tell. I would force myself to sit down and write about the times when we got approached by CNN, Sky News and the BBC to talk about my virtual reality dating venture, our unusual love story and all the struggles that came with that. So you would think I had an easy story to tell, but that's not in alignment with my passions at present. So this is how it went. I would sit down and I would haphazardly attempt to write something, get frustrated, give up, walk back to that same empty fridge for the 7th time to expect food to magically appear. Then I would give up, walk to the front room with a practically empty jar of Nutella and a spoon for a well-deserved break. Then after I stopped tagging my partner in pointless social media videos of food that we'll never actually get round to making, I would stop vacantly looking at my phone screen and go back to vacantly looking at my computer screen, but still I would try again and nothing would happen. So this healthy routine happened for a casual 2 months, but I managed to accumulate a shed load of what I thought were really bad notes. By the way, I've officially completed the internet. I didn't know that the world was flat and that the moon landing was fake and COVID never existed. I didn't know that social media was so informative. So I finally forced myself to sit down and get the thing done, but rather than attempt to write more about something that clearly wasn't working, I chose for the first time to review my notes and review what I'd accumulated over the past couple of months. Whilst reading back on my crazy journey, something unexpected appeared. It's not only that I have terrible grammar and spelling, but there was an overriding theme, a deeper message was lurking within the notes, and I began to write about this with ease. So, as you know, I moved to Swansea from London because of the actual fresh air, especially living a stone's throw from Port Talbot. My life went from a job in London, seeing colleagues every day, meeting new people every day, hanging out with my mates most evenings and weekends, and going back to the luxury of a cramped house share. So I was always surrounded by people. There was always someone to go somewhere and do something with. And if I was alone, it was because I chose to be, not because I didn't have any other option. So when I moved here, I was really excited for the new life and all the change that was going to happen, but I didn't fully anticipate the reality of living so far from somewhere from what I knew. Get your words out, Marc, jeez. Of course, my mates do occasionally come up for the fresh air, and my partner and I occasionally book an expensive trip to London to catch up, but between those trips, I'll be spending all of my days in solitude building my virtual reality dating platform. And this was fine for a while, as I was busy, distracted, passionately creating. But my social fulfillment bucket was emptying a little bit quicker than it was getting replenished. And I was slowly starting to feel a little bit more withdrawn. And these were the themes that became blatantly present when I was reviewing my notes. It's crazy, when you think about it, I was spending all my time building a platform to help others foster social connection, whilst at the same time I was neglecting my own. What became clear is that throughout my journey, I was actually really struggling. I had low-key anxiety, but I put that down to the pressures of my work. And whenever these feelings arose, I would busy myself by working harder to kind of superficially remedy these uncomfortable feelings. But it was a plaster for a bullet wound situation. And of course, a plaster wouldn't be sufficient. But nonetheless, I just kept putting them on until they weren't enough anymore. So this was my first time experiencing social isolation, and I didn't realise how insidious these negative emotions could compound and affect me in a variety of ways. I felt myself becoming irritable. I was constantly not present. I became unmotivated. I started to eat bad all the time. And I was getting messages from my friends, and my replies were getting slower and slower until I didn't even reply anymore. I stopped going to the gym, and my partner would often come home to a messy house. And because of all this, I developed some problematic substitute friends, drinking alcohol most evenings, excessive social media consumption, and I even started vaping. I mean, I've never vaped before in my life, and I just started doing it. And all these new friends were just aggravating more of these negative emotions. I knew something was really wrong when I didn't even want to go to London anymore, the one place that would positively turn these negative emotions around. And I was stuck in a rut, and if I didn't proactively try to do something about it, I was concerned as to where it would lead me. So one Saturday morning, I woke up hungover because I'd been drinking every night, obviously, and I felt awful. And it was a beautiful summer's day, and my partner was working a 12-hour shift, and I had nothing social planned because of my compounding negative feelings. So I just thought, oh, it's fine. I'll busy myself, put another plaster on that bullet wound. But I suddenly became really overwhelmed with anxiety and FOMO, which means fear of missing out, and just yearning for social connection. My bullet wound needed stitches. It was at this point things could have gone one of two ways for me: continue on that same concerning path to find out where it would lead me, or I could proactively attempt to make some positive changes and put myself in situations, there's only one, put myself in situations that would challenge my social circles locally. Looking back, I had a bit of a toxic mentality. I had too much pride. I didn't want to proclaim that I needed local mates. I was ashamed to admit that I had nothing to do on the occasional Friday night, and I had the I've got my mates mentality, which clearly wasn't serving me up here. These thoughts were unconsciously holding me back, and I'm sure it's true for many others too. I found myself thinking, how do I make mates in my 30s when I've got my home life and all that set? Of course, I could have looked for a local job where I would have... I've put someone off. It's all right, it's cut the tension for me. Of course, I could have looked for a local job that, the colleagues over time would have become friends, but my virtual reality dating venture got recognition from CNN, and I was working around the clock with them at the time to make a documentary about it. It was just like too big of an opportunity to throw in the towel to get these much needed social interactions. So it was at this point I had to choose friends or job, socializing or solitude, putting myself first or putting myself second. And unfortunately, I chose job, solitude, and putting myself second. So I persisted despite the deteriorating effects it was having on my mental health. My lifestyle was not allowing me to meet new people, and the drunken interactions in the pub was not really the way that I wanted to go about it. I feared it would only encourage more of the we hang out and get drunk together kind of mentality, which is not only what I wanted to step away from, but what I needed to step away from. But having said that, I'm not against the occasional beverage, or 7 for that matter. I finally finished the documentary with CNN, and I couldn't have been happier with how it turns out, but I desperately needed to refill my social fulfillment bucket. But I needed to make connections based around positive kind of behaviours and habits to proactively flip my bad ones around. So I did some research, and I eventually discovered a cold morning water dipping group that often go for social coffees afterwards. And it wasn't too far from me, so I decided to attend. Again, my toxic mentality tried to talk me out of it. However, I realised I was holding myself in this newfound comfort zone. So I forced myself to go, and I'm so glad I did. I feel like we have the wrong definition for the term comfort zone. We often use this term to describe a way of being that's comfortable or safe. But it's actually been very far from what I've been experiencing. If anything, I've been keeping myself in a very uncomfortable zone. I feel like we need to redefine it as to when someone puts themselves in challenging situations in order to find their comfort zone. So I arrived, there was loads of wonderful people who I chatted with and I laughed with, and we struggled the cold water together. I joined them for a coffee after, and I had multiple wonderful conversations, and the consensus was health, well-being and connection. Welcome back. I remember driving back home after my first day and I felt amazing. For the first time in a long time, my negative feelings had somewhat lifted and I caught a glimpse of my old self again, a way of being that I forgot for a moment. It was like seeing an old friend that I really wanted to catch up with, but I didn't quite have enough time. I've been attending for a fair while now, and I can honestly say I've met some really cool people and I've found my people here in Wales. And the more I attend, the less I feel my feelings of social isolation and all the negative side effects that come with that. Over time, I started to eat better, go to the gym, and my partner would come home to a clean house, a full fridge, and an even fuller jar of Nutella. I had officially found my comfort zone, and I finally caught up with that old friend, myself. But then, sad news. I had to step away and mourn the death of a close friend. So if you will, I'd like you to just, if you could partake in this, just look downwards and close your eyes for a second while I just say a little something for my friend. R.I.P. 2% nicotine vapes. I will forever miss how you made any dark room glow with your light, and how you filled my heart and lungs with banana ice flavoured joy. You are gone, but not forgotten, for I see you in every corner shop, petrol station, and in the hands of 12-year-old children everywhere. Amen. What I learned is that socialising is really important, and all the positive side effects that go with that. Feeling less irritable, feeling more motivated, and truly feeling present. My bullet wound finally got its stitches. Socialising should never be taken for granted or put on the back burner. Our social lives can often be the one thing that gets most neglected over time. Not necessarily on purpose, it's just that other things can take up this time. Career, new location, relationship. Of course, a lot of these things should and do take priority, but we all know that when we do get this free time, it's often busy doing unsocial, non-fulfilling things like looking at social media or, problematic stuff like that. So yeah, we often default to doom scrolling, giving just that one arm a fantastic workout. You know what I'm talking about, boys. Or binge watching 7 seasons of Selling Sunsets. Just kidding, I've never watched it. Okay, I have. Our friends' lives can change too for the same reasons, and this can pull us in all different directions from our original friendship groups, meaning that a once logistically convenient friendship can become far and few between visits with endless scheduling conflicts. I finally knew the story I had to tell, the story that I've been telling you this evening, and from this I found a calling, something that I wanted to do, something that I needed to create. That exact same calling I had when I created my virtual reality dating venture, that thing that's in alignment with my passions. Sharing my struggle is one thing, but that's only half the battle. I need to become the change that I want to see to truly create my comfort zone. The Cold Water Dipping Group and everything it stands for has been incredible for me, and I will continue to go, and I encourage others to come and join me. But I still had an itch that wasn't quite being scratched, and I wanted to bring other aspects of socialising into the mix. So I created my own group. Yeah, it is there, just checking. Men's Meetup. So it's a group where we basically host a variety of social activities in and around Swansea. And I've created this group based on the same principles on health, well-being and connection. So going for hikes, coffee mornings, crazy golf, board game nights, running groups, attending the cold dips together, the list literally goes on and on and on. There will always be someone to go somewhere and do something with, and I'll always be there, you lucky lot. So my goal, I want to give everyone plenty of options for social interaction. So if you chose to be alone, it was your choice, not because you didn't have any other option. So the men's meetup accounts on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter are still in their infancy, but give them a follow if you're interested in anything that I'm doing. However, statuses can get lost in the feed, so I encourage you to join my WhatsApp channel, which is just for notifying about events. Of course, there is a optional chit-chat section, but I probably wouldn't follow that myself because I'm in about 12 WhatsApp groups as it is already, and the notifications are hell. So tonight, after this show, I'll be announcing an event. I'm sure some of you, well, I hope some of you, may have questions for me at the end of the show or in the interval. I'll be 5 pints deep at the bar. If you want to join that WhatsApp group, I've got a little QR code on my phone, so you can just scan it and it will join you in and you'll always get those updates. So, at the beginning, I said my talk is titled, What Are You Doing Tonight? Well, I'd like to amend it to, What Are We Doing Tonight? Tomorrow, next week, next month. If you want to challenge yourself and expand your social circles and find your comfort zone, then come along to a men's meetup event. I'll bring a full jar of Nutella, you bring your spoon. Thank you.